This is the Frank and Friends Show. Hi there, I'm Frank Murphy.
And I'm Gene Masters.
Well, Gene, thank you for being here.
I'm happy to be here.
You have actually watched the show.
Yes, I have. I have.
Which is a key component to being on the show.
I will admit it.
Very few do. Well, I'm glad to be here. I'm glad actually that you're watching or listening or subscribing, whether you do that on YouTube. You know, we finally did break the 800 subscriber mark, so we're getting that much closer to 1,000, I hope, by Christmas. And, back on all of your audio podcast feeds as well, whether it's Apple or Spotify or Audible or all the things. We're on all of that. We appreciate your subscribing and telling your friends about it, because I guess I'm going to call this the beginning of season 3. I had to take the hiatus during October and November. I'm not going to say unexpectedly, because if you look back at the last episode, which came out on, I think, September 30th, I say something to the effect of, I may miss a few shows because of doing Scholars Bowl on East Tennessee PBS, which I think you also, I think you're aware of that show. Your grandson was on it.
Yes. Quite a few years ago, though. He's now married and working away in hot Atlanta.
Oh, see, my son was on it also. And I think they were, my son's 30, well, he'll be 33 in January. So
okay.
Thomas is...
about 27.
Yeah, okay. So my son would have been on it before your grandson was on the show. And that was my introduction to Scholars Bowl. I went over there and sat in the audience at PBS and I watched it and I thought, oh, these questions are hard. Not knowing that someday I would get to host the show. And after, I think I just finished my 7th season of hosting it. And I took on the responsibility. And my wife is going to kill me when I say that, because I opened my big mouth and said I took on the responsibility that she ended up helping me with, which was preparing the questions.
Yes.
Hosting the show is tiring, but I've been doing it. I know how to do it. We did 58 episodes. And yeah, my feet hurt by the time we're done, because you're doing sometimes 6 shows in one day. Mm-hmm. And you're standing there. But I said, well, I'm going to take on the responsibility of preparing the questions, because I think I can make it easier for myself to host the show if I reorganize the questions in a different way. And everyone said to me, it's too hard. What you're doing, what you're describing you're going to do, you're making it harder on yourself. And I thought, no, I've got this idea, you see. What we're going to do is we're going to make, 50 questions for the toss-ups, and then I'll prepare 50 bonus questions, and they're going to be the same category. And they're like, that's a lot of work. That's not how we do it. I said, but I'm going to try it this way. And they all told me it was crazy. Well, they were right in that it was so much more work to prepare the questions in that fashion. But that's where my wife came in. Mm-hmm. I had these...
Yeah, and she wasn't planning on coming in.
I had these old sheets of paper that looked like they were typed on an IBM Selectric or on an old dot matrix tractor feed. And I wanted to get rid of all those and update them, put them in a nicer font, and also put them on cards so I could hold up on Alex Trebek and everybody, where it says Scholars Bowl on the back. And the TV station made those for me. So I'm standing there and I'm looking, instead of me slouching down and looking at the questions on the podium, I'm looking up and I'm reading the questions. So all of that extra work of preparing questions that would never make it on the air. And that was really the key, because in the game, you get a toss-up question. And if you get it right, then you're asked the bonus. Yeah. If you get it wrong, well, then the bonus just goes away. No one hears the bonus. So here I am preparing an extra 20 bonus questions per episode that aren't going to make it on the air. Mm-hmm. Or I should say my wife is helping me prepare all these. Because we sat at this table, and the whole table was covered in Scholars Bowl questions. She's at that end with her laptop. I'm at this end with my laptop. And we're talking to each other about... what year did Alexander the Great do something, it was 432 in Constantinople. We're going back and forth and fact checking everything, and we're blah, blah, blah. It was so much work. Well, it turns out when we get to the actual taping of the show that it was all worth it, because even though I made it harder on the preparing of the questions, my wife and I made it so much easier on the goober who hosts the show, which is also me. Because now I'm flying through the questions. We're going through more questions per episode, because I'm not stumbling and fumbling and looking for the next question. Right. They were all laid out in this organization that I had in mind. And so when the show starts airing in January, I'll tell you all about it. But I'm so thankful to my wife and also to the PBS people for letting me just, try this crazy idea. Mm-hmm. And I'm also thankful to you, because I got to the point where you had contacted me and said, how's Frank and Friends doing? And blah, blah, blah. And I said, I'm knee deep, ankle deep. I'm probably actually throat deep in Scholars Bowl. Yeah. And I said, Gene, you can help me out.
Yeah.
I said, maybe you could send me a couple of questions.
I sent you a couple of questions.
So if you have a full page at least.
Well, yeah, but it wasn't a whole lot. They were maybe 30 questions at most.
Well, if you think about it, that's about how many bonus questions we go through in an episode.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I prepared 50, but we used about 45 toss-ups and about 25 to 30 bonuses per episode. So it was really helpful to use all those questions. In fact,
I'm glad.
if you want to send me some more for the 2024 season, my wife and I figured out that if we want to not procrastinate and not work ourselves to the bone during October and November, we need to start preparing the 2024. Actually, we should have started last week, I think is what we figured out. Well, if we wanted to do it like 2 games a week for a year, we might have enough, or I guess we can do 1 week, I don't know, it's something like that, whatever it is, to get 60 games for next year. We got to get started already, because there's less than 60 weeks before we start taping in October.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So one of the reasons that I wanted to have you on the show is because I'm reading one of your books.
Which one?
It's called The Dry Cleaner. Have you heard of it?
Yes, I have. In fact, I may happen to have a copy here, right here. The Dry Cleaner.
And I'm reading the ebook version of it that I got on the Kindle.
Well, books that are sold today, especially independently published books, 98% of them are sold as ebooks.
Sure, because you can take them with you. I mean, I could access it from my iPad, from my Kindle, from my phone, from all the different things.
Yes, and like you say, you can carry them, and not only that, but you can carry one piece of equipment, and it's got maybe 20 or 30 books put on it that you may decide.
You could have 1,000.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You can pick whatever you want and read whatever you want and put it down whenever you want.
Which is hard, because so many of us have gotten bad at reading books. I know when you see I've got friends on Facebook who proudly proclaim that they are book readers.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, this seems odd to me because I'm old and we all used to read books. But then it occurs to me that I'm reading their Facebook status instead of reading a book.
Yes. Yes. And a lot of people are pretty much cliff noting it these days.
Well, there's an abbreviation that's famous on the internet. I think it's TLDNR. And people put this as their comment. Like someone will share an article. Yeah. And the top that you see the bullet point of the article is some hot button issue that you have an opinion about. Yes. So they want to say their comment on it, but they'll put TLDNR and then whatever they wanted to say, indicating that the article was too long, they did not read it, but I'm going to give you my opinion on what the article was anyway. So it signifies their ignorance. Yeah. But they go ahead and do it all the time.
Well, but what you can do a lot of times, though, and even on some of the stuff that gets put on Facebook is you can skim it and pretty well know what the guy's saying. Sure. But you have to at least do that. Yeah.
Now, this is not your first book, but it's your first book in the Rich Vittelli mystery series.
That's correct.
I always liked mysteries. I always liked, Agatha Christie and. There's so many others. That's the one that comes to mind because she's still the most famous. Yes. But over the course of the years, there are a bunch of other mystery books that I read. I mean, even the Jefferson Bass, we'll talk about that in a minute, that Dr. Bass and John Jefferson did.
Yes, I've read those.
Those I loved. The Patricia Cornwell ones. I mean, I always got into those series of books where the same, whether it's the coroner or the doctor or whoever is the de facto, that's not what I meant. The de facto detective. That's my new word, de facto. They show up in multiple stories, so you don't have to worry too much about them dying.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, The Dry Cleaner was the first of the series. It's followed up with True Believers, which is the second in the Rich Vittelli series. Now, Rich Vittelli is obviously the detective. Mm-hmm. And the third one is Bobby Doyle Is Missing. And right now I'm still writing the fourth one, which is going to be Rich in Venice.
Oh, so you're Italian yourself, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Only on my mother and father's side. The name Masters is a shortened form of Mastrangelo.
Oh, that's nice.
So, yeah, it's a beautiful name. I don't know why my father decided that he had to cut it off.
So that would mean something angel?
Head angel.
Head angel. Oh, see, come on, man. That's great. And considering I know you're from church, it's appropriate.
Thank you. I don't know how angelic I am in church.
Well, I mean, you do a lot of, you help out a lot. You're good at working around the parish. It's nice. But you've also written but I'm going to get into the Italian stuff because I have a nice little treat for you.
Yeah.
Before Rich Vittelli came along, you had done some novels about your background in the Navy.
That's correct. My first book and my bestseller. This book is far and away outsold.
That's huge, just like 3 books.
Well, it's 800 pages.
Oh my goodness.
It's Silent Warriors, submarine warfare in the Pacific. And what I do is I take a mythical submarine, just like the one I served on, which was a modified World War II submarine.
Wow.
And basically...
So were you serving during time of peace, or...?
Oh, yeah. I was between Korea and before Vietnam, so I never fired a shot in anger.
Yeah.
But basically, the first book takes a mythical submarine through 11 war patrols with the same skipper. Now, that was never happened during the war. Like I say, after 4 war patrols, they usually relieve the skipper because he was kind of burned out after that. 2 skippers made 5. One of them got captured and spent the rest of the war in a Japanese war camp.
Oh, man.
That was Dick O'Kane, and then of course the big hero of them all was Lucky Flucky, Gene Flucky, who was the skipper of the Barb, and he made 5 war patrols. That
What's
was the
the
most
Barb?
anybody. The Barb is the name of the ship.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah.
So his name is I got to be careful how I say that. Flucky?
Flucky, yes.
That's his actual name.
Yeah, absolutely. And he won a Medal of Honor. One of 7 who won them during the war.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
And then the other books you've got are continuations of the submarines, or no?
Well, one more submarine book, the Laconia incident, is about German submarines. It's an incident in the war that was very strange, where a German submarine captain torpedoed a British liner.
Yeah.
And discovering to his horror that there were like 1,800 Italian prisoners of war on board when he'd done it. And he proceeds to start a rescue operation. And in the process of rescuing them, he didn't discriminate. He picked up whoever he found, whether they were Polish, who were Polish guard who were guarding the Italians, an Italian or an Englishman or whatever the heck he'd find, and they rescued the whole bunch of them.
Okay, yeah.
And it was going on real fine until the Americans came in and screwed up the whole operation. And that's basically what this book is about. And this book is pure history.
So that is not a novel. That's a nonfiction.
That is a novel.
Oh, it's a novelized.
It's historical fiction.
Historical fiction. Okay.
Historical.
But it's all based on true stuff.
It is an exactly true story. Yes.
Fantastic. And what's the last one?
Well, then in between that, there was one called Operation Exodus, which is about Navy SEALs.
So you've written a lot. I mean, I didn't realize that there's 9 books over there. How many? 6 books over there? 7.
And one that I'm really proud of that nobody reads is this one right here, The Wounds of Jonas Clark.
Is that the Stigmata?
Yes.
Who's Jonas Clark?
He's just a guy.
Okay.
He's an investment broker in New York who wakes up one morning next to his girlfriend in bed and finds himself with his hands and feet pierced.
Oh my gosh.
And can't figure out what happened.
Yeah.
Who did it? Did he do it to himself? Did his girlfriend do it? Or what?
Or was it a miracle?
Or was it a miracle? And it goes from there.
Wow.
So,
well, there are a lot of, there's that Padre Pio movie that's got a lot of attention recently. Padre Pio in real life had the Stigmata, and that I think is represented in the Shia LaBeouf movie, which I haven't seen. I'm not even sure if it's been played in America yet.
Well, I'm not familiar with it, so I can't.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway, they made a movie about Padre Pio, and it's caused the actor to become Christian. He was atheist, wandering around, didn't know what he was going to do, and this character, he became so in love with the character and everything that he learned in the movie. So it was very transitional for him.
Yes.
All right. So Rich Vittelli, very Italian. I will tell you that my next door neighbor Nancy went to New York. Where's your family in America? You're not from Knoxville.
No, originally my family came over in the early 20th century, 1918, and they settled in New York.
Okay, so my family's from New York also. My parents are from the Bronx.
I won't tell anybody.
Okay, well, my friend Nancy, next door neighbor Nancy, loves to go to New York every year at Thanksgiving, and she marches as a volunteer in the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade.
God love her.
So this year she was a toy soldier walking alongside the Joss Stone float. It would look like children's building blocks and children's toys. So she's got on this outfit with the red dots on her cheeks and the big high hat. And she's like one of the wooden soldiers. She's marching along. Well, we helped her out, took in one of her packages while she was gone. And then I was sending her screen grabs of herself on, on the YouTube and on NBC. Because she made it onto the NBC telecast. It was great. Well, anyway, she came back, in fact, exactly 1 hour before I was expecting you. The doorbell rang, and I panicked because I was sure that we had agreed on a time, and I had not yet at this point showered or finished setting up the room. I hadn't done all my homework. I mean, I had just finished recording today's Lake FM radio show, which is all Christmas music, by the way. 104.9, 100.9, or online around the world on lakefm.com.
All right.
And I enjoy Christmas music. I love it.
And he's good on it, too.
Thank you. Well, anyway, so the doorbell rings, and I think it's you. And I'm like, what am I going to do? You're just going to have to sit here while I go upstairs and shower, or you have to go home. I mean, you live close, thankfully.
Yeah. You're just 5 minutes away. I didn't realize you were this close.
I know, it's amazing, isn't it? You can probably see your house out the back. Because that street back there, well, anyway, it's a long story. That's 379... Whatever.
We're on the other side of Middlebrook.
There's the zip code divide is my back property line. My neighbors back there are on a different zip code than I am. They're in the more expensive zip code. I'm in the 379 too far over here.
Okay.
That's it. Anyway, so Nancy, it was not you. I don't know if you knew this, but when the doorbell rang an hour ago, it was not you.
Okay.
It was next door neighbor
I'm glad
Nancy,
to hear that, because I didn't think I was here.
who had come back from New York and was so excited because she went to see some of the pre-records for they have the tree lighting ceremony at Rockefeller Center, and they record part of it in advance, and she got tickets, and she went to different other TV show tapings. So she went to someplace called Palermo Pastry Shop in Brooklyn, and that she loves going there every year when she goes up, and she said she's going to bring home, and it's for my wife and me, but you're here first.
Okay.
So you win, and we're going to open it up. She's got the real Italian cookies. I mean, look at these. Does this say Italian cookie to you or what?
Oh yeah, that's definitely.
That's like the real deal. That's authentic.
Yes.
And then some of the other ones in there. So you can want to help yourself to a cookie, you're welcome to. Or if you don't want to make chewing noises on the mic.
I don't think that's a cool idea on TV.
I've certainly made plenty of chewing, but we'll save that for after. And I wanted to say thank you to next door neighbor Nancy.
And they can all be jealous on watching.
Oh, that's good. The little bit of chocolate I got on my finger is fantastic.
You said your family was in the Bronx.
My parents are from the Bronx. I grew up in the suburbs of New York in Yonkers.
Okay, my mother's people all were in Astoria.
Yeah, Queens. Yeah.
But my grandfather's people were all on, or my father's side, were all in the Bronx.
Nice.
On Purdy Street. Okay.
That's where my grandparents lived, is on Purdy Street.
Okay.
That's shocking.
And I'm sure they went to Lambiase to get their pastries.
I don't know, because they were on the Irish side of things, but they went to St. Raymond's, which was on their same block.
My grandfather's buried in St. Raymond's Cemetery.
Get out of here. I think my grandfather's also buried in, there's 2 St. Raymond's cemeteries. We're going to have this conversation privately, because apparently we've known each other before we knew each other.
Yeah, how do you know that?
My parents were married in St. Raymond's, right there on, what was the main road, Metropolitan, whatever the main drag was, I don't even know. All right, well, while we're talking about books, and while we're talking about death, and especially in your book, which I'm very much enjoying, The Dry Cleaner,
yes,
where there's disposal of remains is what the...
yes.
How the remains are disposed of.
Yes, she has a very unique method of doing it.
Yes, so in that regard, Dr. Bill Bass, of course, is the world's preeminent forensic anthropologist, 94 years old.
Yes, God
and
bless him.
Still out there. In fact, on Monday, I'll be emceeing an event with Dr. Bass. Look, see, this is the new. It's kind of odd. For people who like to go to Thompson Bowling or the other things, we've got these new clear bags that say Dr. Bass on them, Bone Zones, and Frank Murphy on there. I don't think of that. They even put me on the bag. Isn't that sweet? Well, the one we're going to give out on Monday is, I guess, blue, because the theme is frozen bones. So this one was from the Halloween episode where it was, but they're nice. So we can go to, basketball games now. But all the other merchandise you can get at bonezones.com. Don't forget the S. And let me pull out some of the fine stuff you can get. Like, for example, the Body Farm T-shirt. You can get one of these.
Oh, yeah.
And it's got the list on the back.
Do they put the bodies in those when they put them in the fields?
The bodies? Well, actually, I can tell you exactly what they do with them if you're interested.
I've read the book.
Okay, because all the remains then go into the William M. Bass donated skeletal collection at the University of Tennessee. Death's Acre is the nonfiction book, with Dr. Bass telling the origins of the body farm and how he decided he needed to put people out there and watch them decompose. And it's got a few interesting case studies in there. Or, of course, there's the Jefferson Bass novels, which you said you've read, and I enjoy those very, very much. And it's funny because if you read them in chronological order, they get better.
Yeah.
Because John's gets a little more comfortable. I mean,
I'm familiar with the syndrome.
Well, even if you wanted to get like a souvenir skull autographed by Dr. Bass.
I don't know that I'd want a souvenir skull.
Well, this one looks fake. It looks like a paperweight.
Oh, okay.
Because it's a gold, but it's got
it looks fake anyway. That's cool.
Well, we do have some realistic-looking ones, and people buy those right up, and we sell out of those frequently at Dr. Bass events.
Okay.
So if you want to get your autographed Dr. Bass merchandise, bonezones.com. Don't forget the S, because with the skulls, the hats. Oh, we got the Bill Bass groupie hats. The whole 9 yards. Here you go, Dr. Bill Bass groupie.
Good Lord.
And well represented in all the things, challenge coins, key tags, and we appreciate the support of Dr. Bass and Susan and everybody at bonezones.com. They've been advertisers on the Frank and Friends show podcast since day one.
Very good.
So there you go. This is actually coming up. I've got Dr. Bass on Monday. I'll be emceeing the event down in Cherokee Caverns with Dr. Al Hazari, who will do some kind of chemistry magic show. Sam Venable will do a humorous talk, and Dr. Bass will present a forensic lecture, and I facilitate that for him. I kind of help him, say, well, Dr. Bass, what's on this slide? And I have a question for the audience. That kind, like
sounds
that.
Interesting, actually.
It's fascinating. It's absolutely amazing. But I also have 2 Christmas parades coming up on Saturday, and I want to get in a plug for those because once again, the Frank and Friends show has been invited to host the Carnes Christmas Parade's YouTube feed. So they have their own YouTube channel, and this is the 3rd year in a row that I've done it. My friend Becca James, the girl with 2 first names, will join me as we describe the Carnes Christmas Parade rolling up Oak Ridge Highway. Is that right? Yeah. And so if you're there in person, you'll go home and watch yourself on YouTube afterward. But if you're staying home because the weather's too frightful, you can just watch it live. I hope they have a plan in case it rains on Saturday. Heather Wallaga from Channel 10 is going to be the Grand Marshal.
Oh my!
You ever watched her on Channel 10?
Oh yes,
very
all
lovely.
The time. All the time.
The Carnes Parade calls up and they contact me and say, "Hey, we have this idea. Can you get us to Heather Wallaga as our Grand Marshal?"
Can you get her?
They wanted me to get her. Yeah. They're like, "Do you know her?" Well, she went to Carnes High School.
Okay.
I said, "Yes. In fact." That same day, every year, I've got the Carnes Parade at 9 o'clock in the morning, and then at 6 o'clock that evening, Heather Wallaga and I are the announcers for the Rocky Hill Christmas Parade on North Shore down by Morel, which is more of a festival, and it's a nighttime parade, and they've got, it's like everything in a parade, but it's also condensed because they can only close the street for 45 minutes. So it's a very fast-moving parade.
Right through there.
It does. The guy, some guy named Miller, who's writing the script for Heather and me to read.
Yeah.
He texted it to me last night. I had to write back to him. I said, "Dude, this is too long." Each of these people, whether it's the politicians driving by in their Carmen Gias or or the marching bands. Or the marching band, you shut up. You don't talk while the marching band is going by. And they're the longest thing. It takes maybe 30 seconds for the marching band to go by. But everybody else, here's the Akima Club, and they've got this 4 paragraphs of me to read for the Akima Club. I mean, we're going to make it through the first 2 sentences, and they're going to be gone.
Yep.
So I had to tell him all that. He's like, "Oh, thanks for telling me." But anyway, it's a great festival. They have live reindeer. They have the Grinch reads this. They read the Grinch story. They've got some actually really top-notch musicians every year. But this year, it's ones that are so top-notch, even I've heard of them. Cruz Contreras and Emmy Sunshine. Yeah, so you should, by the time you watch this on the 2nd, you should know what day tomorrow is, which would be the 3rd. So, had I thought ahead and opened my calendar, I certainly could have.
I are an engineer, so I can.
Yeah, was that what you did in the Navy? You were a.
I not only in the Navy, but in life.
After the Navy.
Oh yeah, there was life after the Navy.
I mean, in what branch of engineering is most appropriate? Mechanical, nuclear?
Which degree?
I don't know.
I have an undergraduate mechanical engineering.
Okay.
And then a master's in environmental.
Yeah.
And then I went on for a PhD in civil.
Oh, fantastic.
So I'm covered most of the bases. and the strange part about it is in my professional career, most of the work I did was in chemical engineering.
Oh, well, interesting. My son does chemical engineering.
Ah, yes.
He just, in fact, just
Well, I always hated
finished
chemistry. That was the funny part about it. That's what I ended up doing most of my career.
well, my son is just got a great job offer, which I'll talk about maybe some point in the future. But he's just he's got his PhD now, and from the University of Michigan, and just got a job offer from.
Boo.
Where did you go?
Notre Dame.
Okay, all right. Well, anyway, he went to the other blue, Big Blue, and
Big Blue. Come on.
I don't know what it's called. Is that what it's? They're good in football.
Yeah. Oh hell, they're great this year. and Notre Dame not so much. So.
Well, anyway, he got his PhD, and now he's got a job offer, and I'm thankful. My wife and I are thrilled because we texted each other with signs of like, oh, thank goodness, our retirement, because our plan.
Don't bet on it.
Well, I know I've been in broadcasting my entire career. I have no retirement plan because you think you've got a good job, and then they pull the rug out from under you, and your 401k stops, and you start from zero again at the next job. So you end up with it's not financially a good move.
It wasn't a good career move.
Not a good career. No, I had fun.
Yeah,
I've enjoyed broadcasting, but in hindsight, I probably should have gotten made some better financial choices in terms of what job I took.
It's like being a first century pope. It wasn't a good career move.
So I'm hoping that my son, when he gets a house where we can just live in the basement.
Yeah.
Like he lived in our basement, and we supported him for 18 years, and my daughter for 18 years. So if I can, and that's 36 years. They each owe us 18 years. We're not going to live that long. You're not going to live 36 more years, right?
You can't plan on anything these days.
So I just need some time to to coast toward the end.
Yeah. Okay.
By the way, if you're interested in buying an advertisement on the Frank and Friends show, you can email me, frankandfriendshow@gmail.com. Well, there's a lot, there's so much has happened since the last episode. It's been, 2 months. This hiatus has turned out all because of Scholars Bowl. And there's so many anecdotes from that show that we've got folks who, one team said, oh, Mr. Frank, if we win the whole thing, will you go to lunch with us after the final game? And I'm like, yeah, sure. I didn't think they were going to win.
Free lunch? Come on.
Yeah, so they won, and I had to go to lunch with them, but I enjoyed going to lunch with them.
Yeah.
And they were delightful. Another team from a city that I really thought was smart and with it, and I thought they were going to, make it high into the, I shouldn't say a city, a high school, known for its smart kids.
Yeah.
Well, they show up, and it turns out they've never watched the show.
Oh.
They're like, oh yeah, well, we're on the Quiz Bowl team at our school.
Uh-huh.
Well, it's different rules. The Quiz Bowl is fun, but it's great. It's a great activity, and there's a lot of overlap. Like the Catholic high kids, they'll do Scholars Bowl in the fall, and then we do like a Quiz Bowl or a Science Bowl in the spring. Well, these kids are like, yeah, we do Quiz Bowl. We're smart. We're from a smart high school. Well, they they ring in and they go like, no. And the judges go, time. And the kid gets 0 points. Yeah. And the other team steals it. So they got skunked because they had no concept of the format of the show. Whereas the teams that do really well
are the ones that practice.
They binge watch last year's episodes, and they play against me. In other words, my cadence, my rhythm.
Sure, they're smart.
Yeah. They memorize the questions. Yeah. And there's one kid that everybody admires. His name's Albert because he memorizes the questions. And he'll ring in the middle of the question because he knows what I'm going to say. Yeah. Well, there's one. You know what xylem and phloem are? It's something about plants. It's about the vascular part of plants. And one is the root nutrients are coming from the roots going up to the leaves, and the other, the products of photosynthesis are coming from the leaves and going back down to the roots. Okay. So one's xylem and one's phloem. And we had the question in there for years, and the answer's always been phloem, right? Yeah. Or maybe it's so I thought, well, that's interesting. I'll leave that one in there, but why don't I write another question just like it, but make the answer xylem? Yeah. Just reverse the up and the down. So I start reading it. Albert rings in. Phloem. I'm like, ha 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 ha.
Gotcha, you little stinker.
So he was very mad about that. But
Do you the same questions from year to year?
there's a lot of, well, I mean, how many times can you ask about xylem and phloem? I mean, how many?
Yeah, that's true.
You know, it's basic knowledge, and because the student body turns over every 4 years. What's changed is in the 7 years that I've been doing it, is the shows are now available on the internet. They didn't used to be.
Yeah.
You used to have to actually watch the show on TV, and you know they didn't even show it all year round. Now they show it every day, all year round, at 5:30 in the afternoon.
YouTube is amazing. There's so much stuff on it.
And the PBS app, you know, is where you can watch all these shows.
Yes.
And in fact, they showed me the streaming statistics for the week that we were, or the last month while we were filming.
Yeah.
Scholars Bowl statistics skyrocketed during those weeks because obviously all these kids who are making it to the last
being smart
8 or 16 teams are studying up.
Yeah.
And that's what's changed it also. So now that was my impetus to say, well, not only do I need to reorganize the questions, but I need to reword a lot of them.
Yeah, and get new ones.
Yeah, and well, thank you. Yeah, you sent me some new ones. Yeah. My friend Aaron Littleton from Einstein Simplified sent me some new ones. Dr. Frank Jr. PhD sent me some, and the kids are like, what is this question? And I said, well, sorry, you can blame Dr. Frank Jr. PhD for that one. And the team that won says, yeah, tell your son thanks a lot. Yeah. That question was too hard.
Well, you know, in writing questions, especially at the high school grade, it's the amount of knowledge that's out there since I went to school has exploded.
Yeah.
Absolutely exploded. And for instance, when my daughter was going through Catholic, she was studying statistics. And she was studying calculus. Wow. And I didn't hit calculus until freshman year in college.
And this is Janina we're talking about?
Yeah.
Because like you said, her child is now grown and married. So that's, wow. Yeah, they were pretty advanced. I mean, at the high school level, they know a lot of stuff. I had to, many times, call Frank Jr. or call somebody and say, would you explain this to me so I know what I'm asking when I tell you to describe this element on the periodic table to me in exponential notation.
Yes.
And it starts with, 1s2, 2s2, 3, all this stuff. It's about, and I didn't really understand it, but at least Frank Jr. kind of took me through it. He said, well, you have to imagine the periodic table, and you're kind of reading across the top, and it means this and this, and they will know this. I'm like, how are they going to know this?
Because they study it.
So we're trying to mix it up with arts and music and chemistry and biology and history and, literature. And there's a lot. And sometimes you get blindsided because you ask about the literature that I studied in high school. It's like, nothing.
Yeah, nobody reads George Eliot anymore.
Yeah, they didn't know who the giant was. That's for sure.
And we read Silas Marner, and we read. Well, thankfully, we actually did read some Shakespeare, and that has never gone out of style.
Right, they do pretty well on the Shakespeare questions, but the Silas Marner, that's particularly, those are just because those questions are still in the game from when it started back in the late '80s. Yeah. Those topics, anyway.
Right. Yeah. And now they're reading, more modern authors.
Sure.
About stuff that's germane to what's going on today.
Yeah, it's contemporary literature as opposed to classic.
We read stuff like Stephen Crane's Red Badge of Courage, which is a book that I loved in high school.
And I'm trying to balance it because in addition to the public schools, we have the parochial schools, we have the non-religious private schools like Webb, and there's a couple of others. We also have the home schools are represented. And, when you talk about those different categories of schools and also public schools from every surrounding county, their curricula aren't in sync with one another necessarily. So I'm trying to pick the common denominator when I'm doing the literature questions, as opposed to thinking, well, they may or may know.
Well, you notice I say the heck away from literature. I didn't give you any literature questions. I stuck with the STEM questions. Let's put it that way.
Well, it's fun for me to put in the Broadway musical questions. Because I look up and see what plays are they currently doing in high school drama.
Yeah.
And they're still doing a lot of the old, chestnuts from the Broadway days. So I put those questions in, and they ring right in and know them, no problem.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of books and everything, I'm excited for you with your self-published books, and we have to have a conversation off air so I can learn how to do that.
Okay.
With the manuscript I started writing 2 years ago and then stopped, so I have to get back to it, because things happen.
Yeah.
I got other side hustles that came up. But if you enjoy listening to any number of books, modern literature, classic literature, one way to do that, one way to get caught up, is by checking out Audible with a free trial, a free 30-day trial for the premium version of Audible. When you go to audibletrial.com/FrankandFriendsShow, for 30 days, you can really try it to the hilt. And this is where you get a credit for an MP3 download. You get a free one every month when you're a premium member, and you can take advantage of that during your free month. Keep that forever, whether you stay on Audible or not. And you can listen across devices. If you got the Echo or you got the app on your phone, you want to listen on your AirPods, you want to listen on your Apple CarPlay, doesn't matter. The program, the Audible program, remembers where you left off and always picks up at the same place. And there's just tens of thousands of titles. So let's say, for example, you wanted to research.
Let's say, for example,
is there an audiobook?
You want to read an audiobook entitled Silent Warriors.
It's on Audible?
It's on Audible. So also is the Laconia Incident.
Bada bing, bada boom.
So also is Operation Exodus.
Well, then get started.
Any one of those 3 books is on Audible.
So here you can sample it for free for 30 days. Find out that you love all these Gene Masters books, for example, during that free trial. And maybe make one of those your MP3 download that you keep forever. Like probably the fattest one. Yeah. That's what I would do. I pick the longest one.
This one is 23 hours worth.
There's boom.
And let me tell you something. The guy that does the reading of this book was fantastic. He did a marvelous job.
Where'd you find him?
Bill Bird. He's a disc jockey out of Sacramento, California.
Fantastic.
And when you get on Audible and you set yourself up to have one of your books done as a book, you can either narrate it yourself, which you're a fool if you try and do that, let me tell you.
Well.
Or you can have somebody who knows what they're doing do it. Now, I may take an exception to that if you've made your career out of broadcasting.
And I'm writing a memoir about my career in broadcasting.
Yeah.
It makes, in the first person, it might make a little sense for me to attempt to narrate it myself.
Yes, but my problem is that, first of all, I don't think I'm that great a narrator. And I tried doing that with the
Rich Vitellis?
Not with the Rich Vittelli. I tried doing that on my own with getting a program that was downloaded for a reasonable amount of money.
Yeah.
Started doing the Wounds of Jonas Clark, and I found out you don't want to do that in your home, because if the cat comes in and starts squealing, or the wife says, "Gene, what happened to?" You don't want to. It's not a really great environment.
You need a studio. You need a whisper room, or you need.
You need something like that, and we're not set up for anything like that.
Exactly. I'm in the same boat where I don't have the. When I'm doing radio DJing over there in the kitchen, there's music playing under me to hide the noise of the refrigerator. Although there's that one guy who said, texted, Frank Murphy sounds like his refrigerator's running. You should catch it.
Well, let me say this: the people that did the books for me did a marvelous job, and if you want 23 hours of really good narration, the guy that did Silent Warriors did a beautiful
Well, I'm glad
job.
to hear that. My friend Jim Tilson has decided he wants to get into that, so he's been looking at it from the perspective of joining Audible as a potential narrator. So he's going to submit his auditions and all the things, and he's excited about that.
Yeah, and what has to happen is that you have to hook up with an author.
Yep.
And he passes on you and picks you as to whether or not you want him. He wants you to do his book, and then the two of you get together, and he can either buy your services completely, or you can share them. And most of mine are shared 50-50 with the narrator.
Oh, that's great. That gives him an incentive to promote it.
Anybody that comes in on Audible, and that way I don't have to pay him anything. Which is to me a no-cost operation up front. If the book sells, great, we're going to make some money. And if it doesn't sell, well,
it's on both of you. Yeah.
So,
well, that's good to know. I like all that. Well, I appreciate that. Don't forget, if you go to our website, frankandfriendsshow.com, you can find some delicious and delightful Frank and Friends merchandise, like the cups. I don't have the beach towel right now because we're still in Thanksgiving mode. We got to flip everything to Christmas maybe before the next episode. And I got to explain to you why there's a live fig tree behind me. I've got to tell you about, I got to tell you some more things about the delightful person who's like me in his 80s, except when I met this guy at a concert, and we just started talking, and my wife thought it was insane, and it's a fun story. I've got that for you. Maybe you saw the giant Santa skeleton on your way in that my neighbors got. We got to talk about that. So there's a lot coming up in the next episode.
No, I didn't see it.
Oh, you'll see it on the way out. It's frightening.
If you say so.
Of the Frank and Friends show. Be sure to smash that button for notifications when you subscribe on YouTube, and we do appreciate you getting caught up with us and getting us back in your good graces with regular episodes, at least until the Scholars Bowl gets me crazy busy next year again. Gene, thank you.
Thank you.
Take care. God bless you. Appreciate you being here. This is the Frank and Friends show. I'm Frank Murphy.
Gene Masters.
And we'll talk to you again next time.